So we were discussing the famous Yerushalmi that the last Beis Yosef in Choshen Mishpat quoted regarding, we all know, this isn't debatable, the Torah tells us, Osamod Adam Reyecha. One cannot stand by idly when someone else is in danger, whether drowning in the water, attacked by wild beasts, attacked by wild people, whatever the case may be. The Torah says, "Osamod Adam Reyecha." In fact, in Israel they have a rule now. I think it was the last Seinfeld. They had something about the Good Samaritan law, that they saw something happening and then they were put in jail. But I think in real life there is no rule like that. You're never obligated in Western society to help someone else. There's no obligation. It could be maybe if you're a doctor or someone else with a specific field, maybe you might. But as a general citizen, but in Israel they do have a rule where if I don't know if you go to jail, but you could be fined in a situation where you could have helped someone else in the end. So obviously the case would be when you could help someone else out in the end when there was no danger to yourself. But no one's going to command you to endanger yourself, no law. But what is the halacha? So Yerushalmi writes, it's the Beis Yosef quotes the Yerushalmi. It doesn't say where the Yerushalmi is, which is a major dispute among which Yerushalmi we're talking about, or if we even have the Yerushalmi today. But it's whichever Yerushalmi it is, and we'll take a stab at it in a minute. Everyone agrees that the Yerushalmi is accepted. I mean, we believe the Yerushalmi existed and the post can bring it down. And the Yerushalmi brings down, one has an obligation to be machnis atzma l'sakana, to save someone else. One has an obligation. It's not just a good idea. One is obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. Where is this Yerushalmi? So many think it's the Yerushalmi in Trumas, in Paraches Halacha Dalel, with the story with Rav Imi. That Rav Imi was taken captive, and so there was a machlokas between different gerusas, whether it was Rav Yonasan, Rav Yochanan, but we'll call it Rav Yonasan. Rav Yonasan and Rav Shimon ben Lakish, what should one do? So Rav Yonasan said, let's bring the tachrichem out, let's bring out the shrouds. There's nothing to do. What do you want me to do? What do you mean do? That's it, he's in trouble, I feel bad for him, but that's it, it's over. Let's bring out the shrouds, we're going to have a burial soon, hopefully we'll get the body back. And Rav Shimon Lakish said, what are you talking about? As I said, he was a Baal Tshuva, he used to be a bank robber or whatever he was, and so he went down to his backyard, his garage, and he took out his weapons, and he said, well, I'm going to go in there, either we're both going to make it or we're both not going to make it. So obviously Reish Lakish felt that one has an obligation. So it's 2 days in the Yerushalmi. So when the Beis Yosef quotes the Yerushalmi, assuming it's the Yerushalmi, he's seemingly paskening like Rav Yochanan or Rav Yonasan, he's passing like Rav Shimon ben Lakish, that one has an obligation to go ahead and risk one's life.
What was Reish Lakish in the Yerushalmi?
But how do they quote him, you mean?
Isn't he from Bavel?
Right, apparently not. Or I'm saying is...
well, because he's quoted a lot in the Bavel.
Yeah, I'm saying is... because the Yerushalmi was before the Bavel unit, so...
yeah.
I'm saying, so if he's in the Yerushalmi, so obviously he was...
right.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but doesn't mean... It could be quoted in the Yerushalmi and the Bavli, but for some people, right, if they're after the... If you're after the if you're in the Bavli, so you could be in the Yerushalmi. If you're in the Bavli, you might not be in the Yerushalmi.
Right.
And obviously, if you came much later, you're not going to be in the Bavli either. But either way, yeah, it's a good point. So, we seem to go with Rav Shimon and Reish Lakish. Yerushalmi says that one does not risk that one has an obligation to put oneself in takana to save someone else. So, the question is, number one, do we accept this Yerushalmi? So before we even get into whether the Bavli is cholek on Yerushalmi, why, even if you assume this Yerushalmi exists, so the Beis Yosef writes, we see Ein Safek Motzim Midei Badai. That goes Mayim when he quotes that, and therefore the reason is because you're only Safek Sakana, he's a vadai sakana, ein tzavik motzi midei vadai. So they point out that that's the Yerushalmi. So some point out, number one, it's machokas in the Yerushalmi. Even if I accept Yerushalmi, maybe we're passing like Rav Yonasan. Secondly, even if we do follow Rav Shimon Leshlokish, it doesn't mean the Yerushalmi is stating normative halacha. Maybe it's stating it's a midas chasidus. It's a nice thing to do, but I'm not going to obligate everyone to be like Rav Shimon Leshlokish. And thirdly, maybe Rav Imi was different. Since Rav Yehuda Chassid writes, the Sefer Chasidim writes that a Talmud Chacham, a Gadol Hador, has the status of a tzibur. So maybe, for an average person, you wouldn't be obligated, but someone as special as Rav Imi, therefore, even if you accept the Yerushalmi, it doesn't mean that we paskin like it, and therefore they wouldn't necessarily make a normative halacha. So either way, that's what Yerushalmi says. So the question is there a Bavli against the Yerushalmi? If there's no Bavli, so of course we go with the Yerushalmi. What else is there? And if there is a Bavli, generally speaking, we pass like the Bavli over the Yerushalmi. Since the Bavli came after the Yerushalmi, we assume the Bavli incorporated everything in they wanted to and then went on. So the Sma points out that if you notice, even though the Beis Yosef quotes it in the in the Beis Yosef, but when he writes the Machaber, when he writes the Shulchan Aruch, he doesn't quote it. And many of the Rishonim as well don't quote the Rambam, the Rush, the Torah. They don't bring it up, implying, according to the Sma, that we don't paskin like this Yerushalmi. The fact that the Machaber doesn't bring it down and other Rishonim. However, as we pointed, that's not so simple, because what does the Rabbi Yosef Cairo really feel? Does he feel that his Iker work was the Beis Yosef, or his Iker work was the Machaber? So let's go ask Rabbi Yosef Cairo himself. So Rabbi Yosef Cairo writes an introduction to Shulchan Aruch. Why am I writing it? I wrote a Beis Yosef. Why am I writing a Shulchan Aruch? And he gives two answers. One is for Talmidei Chachamim who don't have time to chazer the whole Beis Yosef. It's a long, comprehensive work. It's a little short. It's like Monarch notes. It's a good way to review. And now in that, secondly, for the Ketanim, for the Gedolim, let them learn the Beis Yosef. But the Ketanim, the Beis Yosefs too, I'll let them learn the Shulchan Aruch. So the implication from the Hakdama to the Machaber seems to be that the Beis Yosef is the Iker. So the fact that he hasn't mentioned anything in the Machaber, he's only writing a summary. You can't get everything in. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean we don't necessarily pass them like that. So the question is, can we find a Bavli that is Cholek on Yerushalmi? So perhaps we could find three Bavlis, three different Gemaras that are Cholek on the Yerushalmi. Or some implicit, some explicit. So one is the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Ayin Gimel, where the Gemara says, we have two psukim telling me that one has to go and save someone's life. Lo Sa'amod Adam Reyecha, and V'hashevosalo. If there's a mitzvah Vashavas Aveda, if there's a mitzvah to return someone's wallet, and how much more so we have to return their life. So therefore, the Gemara says, "Why do we need both psukim?" So the Gemara says, if I only had one pasuk, I would think that if I knew how to swim, then I knew I'd have to jump into the pool and get them. But how do I know that if I know how to swim, if I don't know how to swim, I have to pay money and hire someone else? Kamash Malan, you need the other pasuk. It's a machokas Rishonim which one's which, but you need both psukim to teach. The Gemara says to teach me that you even have to expend money if you can. From one pasuk we learn how you personally have to do it yourself, and from the second pasuk we learn how you even have to spend money if you personally can't do it. So the Minchas Chinuch says the Gemara should have said a bigger chiddush. They should have said that even if I have to risk my own life to save someone else, I have to do it. From the fact the Gemara does not bring that down is mashma against the Yerushalmi. That's the Minchas Chinuch on the Gemara Sanhedrin Ayin Gimel. We have the Gemara Bava Metzia Samach Beis Amud Aleph, the famous Gemara Shayin Ha'Yehochem Baderech, that two people were traveling in the Midbar. They only have one bottle of water. one container of water, and if the person, it's only enough for one person. If the person shares it, they're both going to die. So Ben Petura has a famous statement: "Mutav sheyishtu shneiam v'yamusa better both should die, and v'yeh echad mehem v'yira echad mehem misasos better than to watch your friend die." And Rabbi Akiva disagrees and says, no, there's a pasuk, your life takes precedence. So the question, it doesn't make any sense, Ben Petura. It's a nice bumper sticker. It's a nice one-liner, but reality, two deaths aren't better than one. That was, I think, the Catholic Church's line that Judaism is cholek on, because the question regarding abortion. So in general, we're against abortion, and according to Rav Moshe, it's murder. According to others, it's hezek, it's nezikin. That's the machlokas of Sitz Eliezer and Rav Moshe Feinstein, how they head it. According to Rav Moshe, it's ritzicha. How come there is no capital punishment? That's because it's an Uber. An Uber, you still violate the Issa Daraisa of ritzicha, you just don't have the onesh of the capital punishment. And Sitz Eliezer writes, it's usher, but it's nezikin, to a major nafkamina. According to Rav Moshe, to be mater an abortion, you need a case of pikuach nefesh. According to the Sitz Eliezer, you don't need a pikuach nefesh, you still need a great sarach, but that's why the Sitz Eliezer is known to be lenient. Well, he's not alive anymore, but he was known to be lenient on the issue of like Tay-Sachs babies and other things, in terms of, wherever you're going to draw the line in the sand, that Sitz Eliezer's line is going to be more lenient than Rav Moshe's line. Because Rav Moshe's line is, it's an Isser Ritzicha, so therefore to violate Isser Ritzicha, it has to be Pikuach Nefesh. The different types of Pikuach Nefesh. There's physical Pikuach Nefesh. We believe in psychological Pikuach Nefesh. In other words, the only clear-cut case of abortion in Judaism is if the fetus is endangering mommy. So therefore, it's black and white. You're obligated to do the abortion to save the mother, because the mother's a full nefesh and the fetus isn't. And the Catholic Church disagrees and says, at least they used to, whether they still do, I don't know, better 2 deaths than 1 murder, the Shita was. So my response to that is, I agree. Better 2 deaths than 1 murder, but this isn't murder. This is a mitzvah and this is a mitzvah of atzolas nefashos. It's not murder. Like if someone's breaking into your home, the Torah tells us in Baba Makteres, it's called self-defense. So therefore, what greater if someone is endangering your life, it's self-defense to save it. It's not a matter of that. So they point out, so the only black and white case is, so that's where the Catholic Church says better 2 deaths than 1 murder. So maybe that's what Ben Petura is getting, but here you're not murdering either. But either way, so let's take a case of rape. If a woman's raped and she becomes pregnant, are you allowed to do an abortion? So again, obviously every case is different, but the question would come down to the black and white halacha would be no. In other words, it's a terrible situation, and emotionally speaking. But if a woman, in other words, I should say the black and white answer, if the woman could deal with it, then she shouldn't get an abortion. But obviously, if it's going to be psychological pikuach nefesh, that this woman's going out of her mind, every day she sees she's pregnant, she remembers, the case of the rape. So I'm not asking yes or no. All I'm saying is that would be in order to be mater an abortion, at least according to Rav Moshe, you'd have to say it's psychological pikuach nefesh. According to the Sitz Eliezer, it doesn't have to be a pikuach nefesh, but you still have to, whether that's considered a big enough of a tzarech or not. But that's a separate discussion, and it's a case by case discussion. So the question is, Ben Petura makes no sense. Nice bumper sticker, but 2 people dead instead of 1. That's not a good conclusion. That doesn't end well. So they point out that no, that's not what he means. Now let's say you're 3 days away from civilization and you have enough for water for 3 days. So if you keep the water, you're definitely going to make it back. But if you share the water, so therefore you're putting yourself in suffix sakana, because you don't know, maybe in a day and you have to find more water, maybe the rescue team will come. So you're putting yourself in suffix sakana in order to save someone from vadai sakana. So Ben Petira seems to go like the Yerushalmi. And Rabbi Akiva says, I agree with you in principle. One should give up their water and risk their own life. But what could I do? The Torah tells me, your life takes precedence. So therefore, basically we pass like Rabbi Akiva, that's another Gemara against the Yerushalmi. That we see one does not risk one's own life to save someone else. And the third Gemara is the Gemara we had in Nida with Rabbi Tarfon on Dak Samach Aleph Amid Aleph. The Gemara was that some people came to Rabbi Tarfon to hide them. Because there was a call out that these people were murderers or they did something wrong and the government was looking for them. So Rabbi Tarfon said, no, I can't hide you. He said, go hide yourself. He said, if I hide you, then it depends on how you interpret the Gemara, but according to some Rishonim, if I hide you, I'm going to put my own family at risk, my own self at risk, and therefore, Rabbi Tarfon said, go play hide and seek yourself, go find your own hiding spot. So we see from this version of Rabbi Tarfon that obviously he felt there was no mitzvah to risk one's life in order to save someone else. So it's a fundamental machlokas Yerushalmi and Bavli on whether one is obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. The Yerushalmi says yes. The Bavli says there is no obligation. And however, the question is, no obligation. However, can you? Is it a midas chasidus or not? So we started discussing the Radvaz. That was the first case of organ transplant, not the classical case we have today, where the anti-Semite says either I'll cut off your ear or I'm going to kill someone else. Are you obligated to cut off your ear in order to save someone else? So the Radvaz says no. The Torah would never demand. Also, during those days, it could have been pikuach nefesh. You could die from infections. The Torah never would have demanded something like that from you, and therefore, the Torah says. Therefore, the Rabbi says one is not obligated to give up one's life. Like we had the Meshach Chachma in Parashas Noach regarding why a woman is exempt from Pru-Ravu, because either physically the Torah would never demand that she have to go through all that pain, or psychologically speaking, force her to get a divorce, because a man could have many wives, biblically speaking, but a woman cannot, and therefore the Radvaz says that you're not obligated. And then we discussed the Aruch HaShulchan, the other poskim, you always have to weigh the Mishkal HaChasidus. You always have to balance the risk today versus the risk we're going to have later on, and that's what we're going to get into. The different poskim would discuss that organ transplants today, according to many, let's say kidney transplants, if you asked 30 years ago, most would say it's asur, and today many would say it's mutter. And that's because the halacha doesn't change, but technology has changed. And therefore, since it's much more doable to do a successful organ transplant, so therefore it's not the same risk of life. And therefore that's the nakuda, how much risk one has to take. So 20 years ago it was too much risk. Today they got the surgeries down. So going to many poskim, it's permitted, and the same issue goes into, with bloodletting, with giving blood and bone marrow. All those issues touch on the risk-reward of how much gain you're going to get versus, how much pain.